Hello there, very good evening. Welcome to Prime Time News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Dithmini De Silva. Let's start off with a look at the headlines.
Presidential election before the 17th of October, says UNP chairman. Former election chief says presidential poll cannot be delayed, warns he would take to the street if such an attempt is made. Police obstruct People Struggle protest in Kalutara. India's G20 presidency on digital public infrastructure purposes, One Future Alliance. Will the central bank governor step down? When's the election?
Will Sri Lanka face a general election first?
Or will it be a presidential election?
This topic has been on top of multiple debates and discussions in the recent past.
And Dithmini, although it's not ideal and it shouldn't be the case, it still remains a question to many among the general public here in Sri Lanka.
So, what will be the next election that we will face?
We're crossing over to Mariam Gunavijaya for a report on just that.
So the million-dollar question is, will we face a general election first, or is it going to be a presidential election? Just like Dithmini said, this topic has been on the top of much debates and discussions because of a statement that was made by the founder of the SLPP, Basil Rajapaksa, recently. So the president had assured earlier this year that Sri Lanka will face a presidential election first. But when a founder of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa, returned to Sri Lanka from America, he told the media that it is better to hold a general election first. And since then, this topic has been facing much scrutiny. But newspapers today reported that President Ranil Wickremesinghe has in fact assured that we will face a presidential election first. Daily Mirror reported that President Ranil Wickremesinghe has said that Sri Lanka will be able to face the presidential election by the first week of October. The report added that President Ranil Wickremesinghe has hinted his close associates and his cabinet that the presidential election will be held as scheduled, indicating the failure of Basil Rajapaksa in convincing the president to hold a general election first. So, is it a general election or is it a presidential election that we will face first? Today, the media questioned the chairman of the United National Party, Wajra Abeyewardena, on this matter. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
ඔක පැහැදිලිව කියලා ඉවරයි මේ අවුරුද්ද පටන් ගන්නකොට ජනාධිපතිවරණය තියෙනවයි කියලා. නෑ එක එක්කෙනා කියනවා දාලා නෑනේ ආණ්ඩු ක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාව අනුව ජනාධිපති මැතිවරණය පැවැත්වෙනවා ඔක්තෝබර් 17 වෙනිදාට කලින්.
When's the election?
The cabinet spokesperson expressed these views at the media briefing to announce cabinet decisions today.
That wasn't discussed at the recent cabinet meeting. In fact, at a previous cabinet meeting, the president made it clear that the constitution does not allow for postponing elections. It was also confirmed that the necessary funds are allocated in the 2024 budget. This was explicitly stated in the cabinet papers.
ප්‍රකාශන වශයෙන් දැනුම් දුන්නා. ඔක්තෝබර් මුල් සතියේ ජනාධිපතිවරයා පැවැත්වෙනවත් ඊට තමයි තරඟ කරනවා ජනාධිපතිවරයා ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේදී ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා කියලා මාධ්‍ය වාර්තා කරනවා. මේ ගැන ඇත්තටම මොනවද ජනාධිපතිවරයා කිව්වේ? කිසිම දෙයක් කිව්වේ නැහැ.
When's the election?
In recent days, Basil Rajapaksa has been actively engaging with various political entities, including district leaders of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Today's discussions involved key party figures from the Mathura and Kandy districts.
We can't decide that. It was not discussed here, and it is something the government has to decide. The Election Commission has to decide. Basil Rajapaksa said that we should not discuss the presidential election or the general election here, and that we need to first make our May Day a success. Therefore, as a whole, we discussed the May Day. No, there is no reason for it to be a challenge. There is no mention of any election yet, so there is no need to panic. There are so many dreaming of presidency in this country. When Andrukumara Dissanayaka steps on the scale, we can decide his weight, and if whatever he says is echoed in the villages, because we are also from villages, when we count the votes during an election, we can see where he stands and where we stand.
The following views were expressed at a press conference called at the party headquarters today.
පළමුව ඉදිරියට එන්නේ ජනාධිපතිවරණයද මහමැතිවරණයද අපි කල්පනා කරනවා මොකද ඉතිහාසයේ ප්‍රතිඵල දිහා බලපුවාම
Looking at the history, we are of the position that one political party cannot build up unnecessary power in parliament. That is why we, as the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, are discussing, along with the founder of the party, Basil Rajapaksa, about the fact that it is better for the country's politics to hold a general election first, before holding the presidential election. But it does not mean that we are hesitant to face a presidential election.
When's the election?
Speaking at the 18th conference of the Water Supply and Drainage Board Workers Union, KD Lal Kanta of the Jatika Janabala Vegaya stressed that the presidential election must be held.
September 17 October 17 Sirasa dinayakadi
The presidential election must be held on a Saturday between the 17th of September and the 17th of October. It is usually held on the Saturday before the last. The local government election was postponed, but the local government bodies are operating. But the country cannot operate when there is no president. The country cannot operate without public representatives. We cannot doubt if the presidential election will be postponed. Is cunning Ranil playing games? Everyone is of their own opinion. The Rajapaksas, including Basil Rajapaksa, are plotting around it because they are afraid of holding the presidential election. Brothers and sisters, you may often hear that a general election will be held. Why is that? Because they are afraid. Because they are aware that parliament will be dissolved as soon as candidates of the compass wins the presidential election. Game over. For the first time in Sri Lankan history, there is a chance to build the lives of the working class. This is why they are demanding general election before a presidential election. There is no escape from this. After the presidential election, you are destined to lose at least one or more ministerial portfolios. They believe that if a general election is held first, they will be able to save their reputation while they still have access to all sorts of powers, including the president, government, the thugs and mass media. We don't care which election comes first. We are ready for either one of them. Let's keep getting stronger.
The Samakijan Balavegya said that it is ready for an election.
Everyone is aware that according to the constitution, the presidential election must be held before October. In that case, we, the Samagijana Balavegya, especially opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, are clearly capable of rebuilding our country. Regardless of what anyone has to say, this trend has started with the SJB. Therefore, we clearly state that regardless of whichever election comes next, presidential or general, an SJB government will be formed and will come into power.
ඊළඟ බලයට එන්නේ සමගි ජනබලවේගයේ ප්‍රධාන සන්ධානය කියන එක පැහැදිලිවම කියන්න ඕනේ.
So just like we saw, multiple factions have multiple stances and opinions about the electoral system and the elections of Sri Lanka. General election first, or is it a presidential election? Today, former chairman of the Election Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, joined us on a Newsline segment with Newsfirst's Sirasa Senanaika. And his position is that the government cannot refrain from holding the presidential election. Let's take a look at what he had to say as well.
The date for the presidential election can be determined only by the chairman of the Elections Commission and the 5 members of the commission. The final decision must be announced by either the chairman or a senior member of the National Election Commission, who will announce the unanimous decision of the Election Commission. No one else is given the authority to say that the election will be held 1st, 2nd or in the 3rd week of October or in early or late September.
ඔක්තෝබර් 3 වෙනි සතියේද දෙවැනි සතියේද මුල් සතියේද සැප්තැම්බර් අගද සැප්තැම්බර් මැදද කාටවත් කියන්න කලවානේ අතුරු මෙති.
During the Kalavana by-election, it was made a multi-member seat. The former MP continued to remain in power regardless of the candidate who won the by-election.
එතකොට ඔය වගේ සූත්‍රයක් දාලා ජනාධිපතිවරණය කල් දාගන්න පුළුවන්ද? මං හිතන්නේ නැති.
I don't think so. If there was a postponement, you know what would happen. The people of Sri Lanka would likely protest in a non-violent and peaceful way.
ජනතාව මේකට විරුද්ධව උද්ඝෝෂණය කරනවා. මං හිතන්නේ කිසි කෙනෙක් මේ වෙලාවේ ජනාධිපතිවරණය කල් දැමීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක් ගන්න යයි කියලා. අපි හිතමු ජනාධිපතිවරණය තියෙන වෙලාවේ ස්වභාවික තියෙන දවසේ.
But suppose there's a natural disaster on election day and holding the election becomes impossible. In that case, I'm not exactly sure what would happen, but it's possible the Prime Minister would have to act as President. This is because the current President's term ends on the 17th of October.
මම නැවතත් අහනවා ජනතාවත් එක්ක හිටපු මැකෝ පාරට බහිනවද ඡන්දය වළක්වන්න කවුරු හරි කටයුතු කළොත්.
If I am among the people, I will.
The following views were expressed by the leader of the Sri Lanka Humanity Party, Dr. Chandima Wijegunawardena, at a press conference held today.
New politics is the agenda. What is the agenda you see at these meetings? Can you tell there is a new vision here? I don't see any vision. America is now speaking of the consequences if Joe Biden is re-elected as president. Do you hear any political stage in Sri Lanka discussing the consequences the country will have to face if a former president is re-elected? It is not about logic and the noise. It is about meaningful discussions and documentation. Where is that type of politics? What this country needs is not loud politics. The country needs politics that can take the country forward towards a better future using the wealth of knowledge of this country.
Amidst the fervour of a protest organised by the People's Struggle Movement in Kalutara, tensions unfolded between law enforcement officers and demonstrators.
On the 20th of March, the People's Struggle Movement orchestrated a protest in Colombo driven by several critical issues. Today, a protest was organized to condemn the arrest of movement members during the demonstration held in Colombo Fort. As the protest commenced, a tense situation unfolded between the group and law enforcement officers. Some protesters chose to sit on the ground, leading to heightened emotions and a charged atmosphere. The use of a tent cloth for seating further exacerbated the situation. Thereafter, several protesters were taken away to the Kalutara South police station. Sri Lanka police said that they were detained for attempting to set up an illegal platform. Police added that the detained protesters were released after giving them a warning.
Our comrades were arrested illegally. This was a peaceful demonstration. We did not obstruct the police in any way. When we hold a placard for a picket, they say that the people are inconvenienced and try to oppress us.
ඉරේ විලංගුවේ දාලා මර්ධනය කරන්න හදනවා. මේ රටේ සියලු දේ විකුණමින් තියෙනවා. එක පැත්ත
Everything in this country is being sold, including electricity. No matter what election is called for, if the same system exists, we will go against it.
එකට යනවට අපි එරෙහි වෙනවා.
The General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Sarathi Dushmantha Mitrapala, vehemently denounced the recent attempt to tarnish the reputation of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and its leader. He said that this effort is rooted in a statement attributed to the party's leader.
A communication bearing the party general secretary's signature highlights an incident involving Maithripala Sirisena, noting that based on the statement made on the 22nd of March, the Criminal Investigation Department summoned Sirisena. It added that Sirisena had provided a statement to the CID based on the summons. The SLFP General Secretary said that regrettably, misinformation and distortions have proliferated across mainstream and social media platforms regarding the content of this statement. The SLFP General Secretary said that the SLFP remains committed to transparency and truth. Police spokesperson DIG Nihal Thalduwa said that investigations were launched into former President Maithripala Sirisena's statement to the CID.
Statements were recorded for more than 5 hours yesterday. Following that, we launched an investigation into the statement. As the investigation progresses, we are seeking the advice of the Attorney General. Further work will be done based on Attorney General's instructions. I have not received any information regarding the statement provided to the Criminal Investigation Department. We typically do not disclose the details of such statements to the media.
Santosh Jha, the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, says that Indian G20 presidency has proposed the establishment of the One Future Alliance, a voluntary coalition aimed at uniting governments, private enterprises, civil society organizations and other stakeholders. He was speaking at a forum in Colombo, which also saw the participation of the president.
Digital Public Infrastructure Session on Enable, Empower, Enrich, organised by the Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka, took place in Colombo.
India's own journey stands as a testimony to the power of DPI. The digital transformation in India over the last decade or so has been driven by these interoperable and open protocols of DPI. The digital infrastructure is interoperable and stacked together, meaning that private companies can build apps integrated with state services to provide consumers with seamless access to everything from welfare payments to loan applications and making investments. The Indian G20 presidency brought about a mind shift in a way and outlined the holistic development that can potentially be brought about by a good DPI. The Indian presidency also proposed the creation of the One Future Alliance, a voluntary initiative that aims to bring together governments, the private sector, academic and research institutions, donor agencies, civil society organizations, and other relevant stakeholders and existing mechanisms to synergize global efforts in the DPI ecosystem. We have already rolled out the UPI in Sri Lanka last month, and we are now working with the government of Sri Lanka to roll out the unique digital identity project based on MOSIP architecture. And we strongly believe that, as in the case of India, this UDI is not an end, rather the beginning of the digital magic for Sri Lanka. It is not about one-off technology solutions, but about incorporating a wider theory of change that brings about digitization across domains.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe graced the event as the chief guest and stressed that digital public infrastructure will be of paramount importance to Sri Lanka for the development of the country's digital economy.
But certainly we have now reached a stage where we can confidently claim to have stabilized the economy. We've come to those agreements with the IMF, and we are talking to the OCC, the Official Creditor Committee, to China, and to the private creditors. You can't go on forever with an import-dependent economy. Therefore, we've made our decisions, and I want to present it to Parliament in the form of legislation. Economic transformation. To begin with, the economic transformation will be firstly to an export-oriented, highly competitive digital economy, to a green economy. So what is the connectivity that we achieve and what do we do in the field of the digital infrastructure? For Sri Lanka, this is essential for two reasons. One is an economy. The economy has to be driven by the digital infrastructure. And some of this is going to be useful to us. One is the agriculture modernization program. So we are looking at, I've been looking at the digital economy as a key player in our own economy. To back this up, we need the education system, both in the schools and in the higher education. One of the decisions is to introduce AI to the schools in the next 5 years, that we could cover it in the thereafter within 5 to 8 years we could have AI in every school, getting to the universities and ensure that AI is taught in every university, and there are some technological subjects itself in the universities. So in implementing it, we needed help. And the best place we could get was India. I thought we will copy what India has done as far as it's suitable to us. And let's piggyback on your experience. So this will save us a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years in development. So we want to go ahead. I want to implement this, and I hope that we'll have the support of everyone else in going ahead. We have to make the change. We have to join the 21st century. So just as much as India has done, we will go ahead and do the same. This is the digital public infrastructure is going to be of immense importance to us. Just as much as in the Anuradhapura period, we had a hydraulic infrastructure consisting of tanks and channels. Today, what we need is the digital infrastructure for the digital economy to be built on.
News First with the people.
The central bank asserts that by further lowering policy interest rates, market interest rates will also experience a corresponding decrease.
The Monetary Policy Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, at its meeting held on the 25th of March 2024, decided to reduce the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of the central bank by 50 basis points to 8.5% and 9.5% respectively.
Policy interest rates will further drop, and when it is removed, the market rates will also experience a corresponding decrease.
The central bank governor elaborated on the increase on CBSL staff salaries.
I will express my personal view. Everyone is aware of how we have performed our duties in the face of the economic crisis as per the Central Bank Act while implementing the monetary policy under the Monetary Act. However, as the head of the institution, I have a responsibility to my staff. The staff have also been impacted, and within the legal framework of my responsibilities, we have done something for them. Not only at the central bank, this applies to those working in the private sector as well, to take care of their workers. That is the primary responsibility of the head of the institutions. There cannot be a conflict on that. Except for the state banks, all other private banks have made certain increases. We can only increase salaries once in 3 years. We cannot do it for the next 3 years. This is something that existed. A committee was tasked with conducting a market search on other salary hikes so that we can compare it with the central bank. I would like to state that just because I increase the salaries of my staff, I will not step down.
Governor, can you give insights as to the reserves of portfolio as of this month and also the expectations of the meeting with the ISB holders tomorrow?
So I can't comment anything about the debt restructuring that is led by the government with the Minister of Finance. On the reserve part, I think we have published 4.5 billion in January. In February, and March figure will be published soon. First week of April, we will. I think I can say we have been purchasing heavily from the market. That should be much higher than 4.5 billion. Sorry.
Governor, when can we expect the completion of the debt restructuring program?
That, as I said, we need to complete by the completion of next review. Whether I may somewhere in June. Already we have started the agreement. So next part is to get the agreement in principle from commercial creditors. And we have already got the bilateral creditors agreement in principle. We are working on the signing MOUs and drafting documents. Those are processing. So I think it will happen soon.
Hamilton Reserve Bank has told a US court to give Sri Lanka a conditional extension till the end of April.
Plaintiff Hamilton Reserve Bank Limited, countering the defendant Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka's motion for a 5-month stay, has requested the New York Southern District Court to extend the stay till the end of April 2024 on the condition that timely and specific information about the status of restructuring be submitted by the 16th of April. The Daily FT reported that complete details about any restructuring proposal Sri Lanka made or received and the progress are the key contents of the proposed reports the plaintiff demands. Hamilton Reserve Bank has argued a further 5-month stay until the end of July 2024 is unwarranted. The Paris Club members and the US have supported Sri Lanka's request for extension. Sri Lanka was sued in the United States by a bondholder after the government defaulted on its debt for the first time in history while struggling to stop an economic meltdown. Hamilton Reserve Bank Limited owns over $250 million in principal amount of $1 billion worth of Sri Lanka's 5.875% international sovereign bonds issued in 2012, filed the lawsuit in June last year in a New York federal court seeking full payment of principal and interest.
Tonight we bring to light a revelation concerning fake cancer medication that found its way into government hospitals. The magnitude of this issue is staggering. Take a look.
Rituximab, a vital anti-cancer drug, plays a crucial role in treating lymphatic system cancers. However, recent revelations have exposed fraudulent production related to this medication, along with another drug, human immunoglobulin. These fake medicines were surreptitiously administered to patients through the Medical Supplies Division. Former Health Minister Kehelia Rambukwala publicly acknowledged that the human immunoglobulin contains saline or an unidentified liquid. Newsfirst investigations revealed that on the 12th of October of last year, rituximab was administered as a counterfeit drug. Shockingly, both the questionable rituximab and human immunoglobulin were produced by the same company, Isoles Biotech Pharma. Cancer experts emphasize that authentic rituximab can significantly enhance the survival rate of cancer patients, potentially increasing it by approximately 15%.
This drug is administered for the lymphoma condition. Most of the time we opt to use chemotherapy. However, rituximab shows a 15% greater chance of survival. Rituximab is used to eliminate the lymphoma cancer cells, but it is also used to control the cancer after undergoing chemotherapy, potentially increasing it by approximately 15%.
රෝගයට කීමෝതെරපි ඉවර වෙලා සමහරට වසරක් දෙකක් වගේ ඒ රෝගය පවත්වාගෙන මැඩපවත්වාගෙන යාමට භාවිතා කරනවා. ජීවත් වීමේ ප්‍රවණතාවය රෝගයේ සුවවීම ප්‍රවණතාවය 15% විතර වැඩි වෙන මේ බොහෝත එකතු කිරීම.
In light of recent developments, it has been definitively established that the medication supplied by Isoles Biotech Pharma is indeed counterfeit. The issue came to light during testing of other medications produced by the same company, specifically related to human immunoglobulin. During a recent court session, Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama presented several critical facts regarding the fake anti-cancer drug rituximab. Prior to this, Rituximab had undergone testing at the National Cancer Institute. The report from the institute revealed a glaring absence. The anti-cancer monoclonal protein was conspicuously missing from this fraudulent medicine. Regrettably, this counterfeit medication has been administered to cancer patients. What complications could this lead to?
Rituximab කියන්නේ monoclonal antibody එක. තනි ක්ලෝනයක් තුළ නිෂ්පාදනය කර ප්‍රතිදේහයක්. ඒකෙන් ඇතිවෙන්නේ ශරීරය තුළ පිළිකා රෝගයට විරුද්ධව.
Rituximab is a monoclonal protein antibody that is produced within one clone to fight against cancer and eliminate cancer cells. If this contains any tainted elements, it could lead a complication. In the absence of a monoclonal protein, it yields no result. Only the result of chemotherapy remains. The potential for recovery fades away and the situation would worsen in time to come.
කීමෝതെරපි ඖෂධවල ප්‍රතිඵලය පමණයි එතනදී රඳා පවතින්නේ. ඒ නිසා රෝගියාගේ සුවවීම ප්‍රවණතාවය නැතුව යනවා. රෝගියාට නැවතත් ඉතා සුළු කාලයක් තුළ මේ රෝගය නැවත උත්සන්න බවටපත් වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ඒ රෝගය නැතිවීමෙන් ඇතිවන අසාධ්‍ය තත්ත්වයන්ටත් ගොදුරු වෙනවා.
The substandard rituximab medication was procured in haste. Advice was given to produce this drug, citing its scarcity either because it is out of stock or unavailable through the medical supplies division. This sudden urgency inadvertently favored the fraudulent company Isolis Biotech Pharma, which promised swift delivery of rituximab within a 5-day window. This sudden urgency inadvertently favored the fraudulent company Isolis Biotech Pharma, which promised swift delivery of rituximab within a 5-day window. The procurement process hinges on tenders, and Isolis Biotech secured the order by positioning itself as an urgent solution. On the 30th of November 2022, the company was entrusted with supplying 2,250 doses of this critical vaccine. An urgent need implies that the drug is in critically short supply, leaving the medical supplies division without sufficient stock for even a single month. However, recent revelations have exposed a continuous stream of rituximab to the medical supplies division, even when the drug was being purchased from this company. Remarkably, the national requirement for this specialized medication stands at 750 vials per month. By the 13th of October 2022, a staggering 3,500 doses of rituximab had already been received, equivalent to a 4-month supply. The perplexing disappearance of stock within a mere month and a half raises serious concerns. Notably, on the 14th of December 2022, a substantial 5,076 doses of vaccines were received. However, as of the 5th of January, the requirement stood at 4,474 vials of the next 6 months. The alarming twist lies in the fact that instead of the critically needed rituximab, a counterfeit medicine was administered, resulting in an exorbitant expenditure exceeding 10 million rupees. The exact amount is 17.9 million rupees. But can the damage be quantified solely in monetary terms? This transcends mere finances. It is a matter of human lives. What fate befell the patients who unwittingly received this fake medication? Has a thorough investigation been conducted? Is there any information in this regard? The issue now rests before the court, with former Health Minister Kelly Rambukwella and 10 others, including the owner of the fraudulent company, currently in remand. Charges have been filed in relation to public property. Shouldn't immediate action be taken to unveil the perpetrators behind this grave offence, ensuring justice and safeguarding the lives of our citizens by following a comprehensive inquiry grounded in scientific investigation?
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa says the current school system will be integrated with the foreign school system as a measure to uplift the education system in the country.
මෙරට පාසල් පද්ධතියක් විදේශීය රටවල පෞද්ගලික පාසල් පද්ධතියක් මම එකට
I will interrogate the local school system of this country with private schools in foreign countries. We heard that lunch is being provided to school students, but they are only providing lunch to only students in the primary section. How can you do something like that? Can you ever segregate children like that? We can't do that. The program to provide lunch is essential to schools. When the children are provided with lunch, they get the nutrition that they need. It is sad that they are only providing lunch to the primary section of the school. But you won't have to wait too much longer. There are 4.1 million school students in the country. Before the end of the year, we will take steps to provide all 4.1 million students of the country a free lunch.
The opposition leader expressed these views while speaking at the 87th phase of the Sakula program, where a bus worth 5 million rupees was donated to the Godakavila Rahula National School in Rakwana, Ratnapura.
Challenges in the maritime domain brought together regional partners in Colombo. Day one of the UNODC conference under the theme Chartering Unruly Waters, Enhancing Maritime Domain Awareness in the Indian Ocean region was held today.
The UNODC conference under the theme Charting Unruly Waters, Enhancing Maritime Domain Awareness in the Indian Ocean region is co-hosted by the Sri Lanka Navy and the UNODC Global Maritime Crime Programme.
The UNODC Conference on Enhancing Maritime Domain Awareness in the Indian Ocean region, Day 1, started today. Now, Session 1 addressed the topic Maritime Domain Awareness in the Indian Ocean region, where panelists addressed key strategies and challenges in building a resilient MDA in the Indian Ocean.
The Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka stressed on collaborative support.
Connecting South Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, the Indian Ocean region is no doubt a nucleus of global economy. For Japan, the sea lanes in the Indian Ocean that includes Sri Lanka are pivotal, not only for economic prosperity of Japan and the entire region, but also for peace and security that enable such prosperity. Hence, MDA that encompasses the collection, analysis, and sharing of information regarding vessel and aircraft movements, as well as oceanic weather and environment conditions, is indispensable. Moreover, Japan's commitment to the marine environment is underscored by our recent exchange of notes for a significant $1 billion project, which aims at oil spill response and management for the Sri Lanka Coast Guard.
The Maldives Coast Guard highlighted challenges in combating illegal substances.
Particularly, the impact of proliferation of different types of crimes have a very significant impact on our livelihood. For example, in 2012, during the height of Somali piracy, we have a number of pirates. We apprehended more than 10 skiffs, 43 Somalis, and later on, at the beginning of the 2017 onwards, we have the issues of drug trafficking from the dhows across the Makaran coast, and a lot of issues are over there. But at the same time, it is also very important that the Maldives is a beneficiary of the ocean resources, and the maritime industries are vast, and it has contributed to the development of our country. Therefore, what happens in the oceans have direct impact on the economy. For example, the drug trafficking and the use of drug causes the diversion of our potential youth from the workforce, from the labor force, and its impact are indirectly matched to our economy. It comes like a combo. It's a package. People jump overboard, they become survivors, they are nationalists. If things go worse than that, the entire vessel is on flames, the documents are destroyed, and there is no evidence and proof to be produced on the court. If things go more worse than that, they throw out the things out in the ocean when the enforcement agencies see, and most probably, if you bring in front of a magistrate, they will never agree that the bags are from the vessel that has been thrown in. So this is basically some of the cases that we are encountering live in our waters, and when we deal with the courts in the prosecution of the cases, the judges don't think the way that we think, and basically they look for evidence and concrete evidence until it is proven beyond their proof that they have been involved in drug trafficking.
The event seeks to provide a collaborative platform for participants to share their experiences and best practices, and to identify strategies and solutions to better understand the maritime domain and monitor its various threats.
The 1.6-mile-long Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland, has partially collapsed after a ship collided with it. Now, officials say that as many as 6 people are still missing, and search and rescue operations are, of course, underway. Hashini Anthinal brings us the details on tonight's The World Today.
Now, the key bridge in the US city of Baltimore was struck by the Singapore-flagged Dali container ship, according to ship tracking data. Hajin, did you know the vessel was 300 meters long and it was on its way to Colombo, Sri Lanka?
Yes, Dinal. Now, on marine radars, the Dali departed from the terminal at Port Breeze at around 12:45 am ET, and it travelled towards the Francis Scott Key Bridge but became stationary at the site of the bridge 45 minutes later.
Now, a live video posted on social media showed the ship hitting the bridge, after which major portions of the spans collapsed into the Patapsco River. Let's take a look at the video. The Baltimore City Fire Department told foreign media a large tractor trailer was on the Francis Scott Key Bridge when it collapsed. The department said there was lots of diesel fuel in the water around the ship that struck the bridge.
Data from Marine Traffic, a ship tracking platform, shows a lot of congestion in the area around the bridge, with increased traffic of anchored vessels further south. The Helen Delich Bentley Port of Baltimore is the largest port in the US for specialized cargo, specifically for wheeled cargo such as trucks and trailers and bulk handling facilities. It is estimated that around 800,000 vehicles passed through the port in 2023, moving a record of 1.3 million tons of imported cargo.
Now, Hashini, there's news from the Middle East as well. The UN Security Council has called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza after the US did not veto the measure in a shift from its previous position.
Yes, Dinal. It also demanded the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages.
It is the first time the Council has called for a ceasefire since the war began in October after several failed attempts. The move by the US signals growing divergence between it and its ally Israel over Israel's offensive in Gaza.
Also, Tinal, in an unusually strong rebuke, a statement from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said the US, quote-unquote, abandoned its previous position which had directly linked a ceasefire to a hostage release. It also said, regrettably, the United States did not veto the new resolution.
Now, Hashini, the statement said this harmed efforts to release hostages by giving Hamas hope it could use international pressure on Israel to achieve a ceasefire without freeing the captives.
Yes, Sinal. It also said Netanyahu had decided to cancel meetings between an Israeli delegation and US officials in Washington that were scheduled for this week. So Israel's defense minister said Israel would not stop the war in Gaza while hostages were still being held there.
Israeli troops battled Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip today with no sign of a let-up in the war, despite a UN Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire.
Yes, Tina. The resolution was adopted on Monday after Israel's closest ally, the United States, abstained. It demands an immediate ceasefire for the ongoing Muslim holy month of Ramadan, leading to a lasting truce.
It also demands that Hamas and other militants free hostages they took during the unprecedented attacks on the 7th of October on Israel, though it does not directly link the release to a truce.
Now, Tinal, after the vote, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres led calls for the resolution to be implemented.
Yes, Ashwini. He also wrote on social media platform X, quote, failure would be unforgivable. That's all we got for you on The World Today. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Tinal Tilakaratna.
And for the Newsfirst team, I'm Hashni Patirana. It's back to the studios.
And with that, we wrap up Primetime News on TV1 for tonight.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.